Why geniuses are actually worse at thinking than you. High IQ is associated with higher income, better health outcomes, and longer life. It is also associated with significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, overthinking, and creative paralysis. Geniuses are not better at thinking. In several specific, measurable, important ways, they are considerably worse. And understanding exactly why is one of the most useful things you can learn about your own mind. The research is consistent and surprising. Higher measured intelligence correlates with a significantly stronger tendency toward what psychologists call cognitive rumination, the tendency to turn problems over and over in the mind without resolution. High IQ individuals are more likely to anticipate problems before they occur, more sensitive to complexity and contradiction, and considerably more likely to see multiple valid solutions to the same problem, which makes choosing between them more difficult, not easier. This is why so many brilliant people are paralyzed, where less analytically gifted people simply act. Here is a second way in which expertise, the highest form of developed intelligence, creates cognitive disadvantage. Psychologists call it the curse of knowledge, the inability to imagine not knowing what you know. Experts systematically overestimate how much novices understand. They skip explanatory steps that seem obvious to them and opaque to everyone else. They lose access to the beginner's perspective, which is precisely the perspective that produces novel questions. Einstein reportedly said that the formulation of a problem was often more important than its solution. The beginner, who does not yet know which problems are impossible, asks the questions the expert has stopped asking. Here is the finding that makes creativity researchers most uncomfortable to explain. Above an IQ of roughly 120, the correlation between intelligence and creative output essentially disappears. Up to that threshold, more intelligence generally means more creative capacity. Beyond it, the relationship breaks down. A person with an IQ of 165 is not, on average, more creatively productive than a person with an IQ of 125. In fact, some measures suggest they are less so. This is called the threshold hypothesis, and it has held up across decades of research. The cognitive ability that most reliably predicts creative output is not measured on any IQ test. It is called divergent thinking, the capacity to generate multiple, varied, original responses to an open-ended problem rather than converging on a single correct answer. Divergent thinking is actually inversely correlated with the analytical precision that high IQ tests measure. The brain that excels at finding the one right answer is structurally less well equipped to generate 20 possible answers and not care which is right. This is why the most creative people in history were rarely the most analytically gifted, and why some of the most analytically gifted people have produced very little of lasting creative value. If creative genius does not require extraordinary IQ, what does it require? The research converges on 5 factors. Domain knowledge at sufficient depth to see what is missing. Openness to experience the personality trait most consistently associated with creative output. Tolerance for ambiguity, the ability to hold unsolved problems in mind without premature closure. Intrinsic motivation, working for the love of the problem rather than external reward. And time. Extended, protected, uninterrupted time. 4 of those 5 are cultivable, not innate, not fixed, not assigned at birth. The genius mythology serves a useful social function. If creative greatness is innate, if it belongs to a biological elite, then the rest of us are absolved of the responsibility to try. We can admire from a distance. We can enjoy without the risk of attempting. The actual research does something more demanding. It suggests that the capacity for creative work is broadly distributed, that the primary differences between those who produce it and those who don't are not neurological. They are choices about how to spend time and what to risk being bad at. Geniuses are worse at thinking than you in the ways that turn out not to matter for creativity. They overthink. They are cursed by their expertise. They converge when they should diverge. They see so many solutions they can't choose between them. What the genuinely creative people in history had, from Da Vinci to Tesla to Kahlo to Kafka, was not superior intelligence. It was superior tolerance for not knowing, for sitting inside a question without forcing it into an answer, for staying at the canvas, the desk, the notebook, long after comfort ran out. That is not a talent. It is a practice, and it is available to anyone willing to begin. The next video goes inside how to actually build a daily creative practice, drawing directly from the routines of the geniuses we've covered in this series. The science behind why rituals work is one of the most practical things this channel will ever give you.
Greatness has a price, and it is paid in silence. The brightest minds often burn in the darkest rooms. Creativity is not a gift. It is a trade. The price of a masterpiece is often the peace of the master. The same fire that illuminates the mind can also reduce the soul to ash.
In the search for color, they find a darkness that the world simply cannot see.
When the mind becomes a masterpiece, the heart often becomes its hostage. To see the future clearly is to be eternally isolated in the present. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become.